Hey everyone, welcome back to Workshop Quick Takes. Last time in an episode of Project XJ, we were inside the right front door of our 2000 Jeep Cherokee, and we were looking at how to remove the passenger side switch cluster so it could be repaired. Well, once you're inside the door, there's usually more than one thing to do in there. We've talked about that before on the driver's side, but today, since there have been questions asked in the comments about our aftermarket audio solution, let's talk about that. One thing people have really asked a lot about is, what is that little device that's kind of sticking out in the middle of the door there with a whole bunch of electronic parts on it? That is in fact our crossover, but in order to mount it there, we had to remove it from its fancy plastic case that JBL shipped it with. So let's talk about how it fits there and how it then integrates with our two-way component system. We got a woofer down in the door and a tweeter up where the factory one would have been if the vehicle had shipped with the Infinity speaker option. Now we will need to take apart the door again to show that, so we'll just give a quick summary of footage from the previous episode and then get on with removing the moisture barrier, which we didn't have to do last time. Make sure you don't rip up that moisture barrier when you remove it. You will want to put it back in there when you're done. There are 1, 2, 3 screws in this side, just like there are on the driver's door. There's one back here behind this plate, and there's one over here. And then the perimeter around here is held in with plastic retention clips. Before installing a crossover in a door void, you'll want to check clearances. It can't interfere with the window, it can't interfere with the door trim card installation, and it shouldn't be in a location where excess moisture will accumulate. We found a spot in the XJ door that met those criteria, but it did require a bracket. We chose to work with U-channel aluminum, sold in most hardware and home improvement stores for building custom screens and door moldings. Flat strap would also have worked, but this was already in the scrap pile. Two identical brackets were fabricated, one for each front door, and then speed nuts were applied to the ends to capture panel trim screws. The crossover, with its cover removed, was installed on the bracket, and then the bracket was mounted in the main door opening. This provides a good interference-free fit, unless of course the window needs work, but in that case, it's just a matter of removing those two trim screws and the entire assembly moves out of the way. Alright, these are 6.5-inch woofers that I'm about to install here. Of course, the screw holes on most aftermarket speakers never line up with the OE ones, and in this case they don't line up with the replacement one that somebody previously put in either. Now since I like to live dangerously, I'm sitting here holding up the speaker and marking out the holes with a carpenter's scratch-awl. I'm sure there's a paper cutout template somewhere in the manufacturer's box. But here we are. I'm not a complete idiot though, so I'll come back in the morning when I have better light and I'll get these holes drilled out and then test tap the screws long before I ever actually try to mount the speaker. Or will I? Yeah, I will. Now that we've mounted the crossover and confirmed the woofer will fit in the factory location without additional cutting, it's time to do the wiring. We generally like using heat shrink compression splices and tape wrapping the wires. The goal is to preserve connections against vibration, chafing, and moisture, all of which are real concerns inside a car door. If you're not familiar with best wiring practices, we've previously published a small series covering the full process of selecting, sizing, terminating, and installing automotive wiring. Although we did revise the door looms at a later date, the work shown here just uses a pigtail adapter to plug into the factory wiring at the woofer. This needs an extension to feed the crossover input, and the crossover outputs need to feed the woofer in the lower door and the tweeter, which will mount at the factory location at the window corner. We'll get to that in a minute. Each section is measured to its final length, cut, and terminated with small ring or spade terminals for better connection with the crossover screw terminals.
Okay, now I'm working on my mounting solution for the tweeters. I think I'm just going to surface mount them on the corner wing blanks at the back of the windows, at the back of the front door windows. Their OE solution, if you had the Infinity sound system upgrade, actually did put them there, but those are really pricey now. A couple $100, I think. People who find them sell them for lots of money because there's enough people now who want to do original equipment restorations of their XJs that people can get a lot of money for those. And some people are 3D printing alternates, but I think just surface mounting them will work well enough. I've already checked the fitment to make sure the door will close and they'll still be on there. I've had to move them all the way to the front edge of the piece of plastic there, but they should work. And then once they're installed, the wire will just go through the back side and down inside the door like it would anyway.
At this point, the audio conversion is nearly done. The woofer wiring is measured from the crossover, cut and finished and secured, and then the woofer is temporarily installed for testing. We do want to see this new speaker system work before reinstalling the moisture barrier, which requires a lot of fresh tape and seals part way around the back side of the woofer. So only a couple screws, loosely installed, are required at this point. And that does it. The woofer is removed one last time, the moisture barrier is prepped and reinstalled, and the door is then reassembled. One side done, one to go. And then it's tunes time with our upgraded audio system.
And there it is. Hopefully that answers questions about what's going on inside our door, because those components have been brought up in the past. It's like, what is this thing doing there? What does it do? We have a two-way component system installed entirely in the door of the XJ. It is possible. Might not have even had to remove it entirely out of that plastic case, but the plastic case was not watertight. It had a lot of breathing holes on it and probably would have just trapped moisture rather than prevented it from corroding. And actually,
This vehicle is in a dry climate. It's not really a problem here, but if you found that that was a concern, you might want to do a slit in the moisture barrier and then push that back around the crossover and then maybe put some tape behind it or even add a little piece of plastic behind there and integrate it into a cutout in the moisture barrier. Something to help it breathe into the cabin rather than into the door. For us, not a big deal. But anyway, now you have some ideas on ways you can improve your vehicle, upgrade the audio experience, because in the XJ it definitely needs it if you're still using the factory. Most of them didn't come with that great of a system in the first place, and after 25-ish years or more, they're definitely not doing well. Thanks for joining us again today, and we'll see you again next time, whenever that is.
Has anyone seen my phone?